All right. Well, grow. How do we grow our businesses, right? Particularly coming out of this pandemic year. This is the year to thrive. We've got to come back alive and thrive, right? So hopefully you'll take away from this a couple of things that perhaps will be helpful to you and your organization. So what we're going to talk about this morning is just comparing and contrasting two different approaches. First, building growth in your business. What is commonly referred to as organic growth, building growth that you grow organically within your organization. And we're going to compare and contrast that with buying growth, doing strategic acquisitions to actually acquire growth into your company. I'll give a little bit of an overview of each. We'll cover costs and benefits, and then we'll do a quick summary. And I'd be happy to take any questions throughout the presentation or at the end, whichever you prefer as an audience member. So let's start with a little bit of foundation. Let's talk a little bit about business success rates for private business owners, if you will. And we're going to talk primarily private small businesses that the U.S. Small Business Administration defines as companies that are generating less than $50 million a year in annual sales and are privately held, not traded on any public exchange. So just wanted to kind of ground us as an audience of, how does growth happen for most small businesses, if you will. I'll highlight that in the US, we've got about 30 million small businesses in operation at any given time. Small businesses represent greater than 99% of all businesses in our country, and they create about 1.5 million jobs annually. And typically it's about 65% of all job generation. It happens in the small business community. It's not the big employers that are helping us grow, it's the small business employers. Interestingly enough, of those 30 million, greater than 75% of them are considered micro businesses. And a micro business is that subset of business that would have 9 employees or less. Okay, so kind of the smallest of the small business, if you will. So we as a people, Americans, are very entrepreneurial, and we start a lot of small businesses every year. But frankly, only a little less than half make it past the first year of operation. Kind of an amazing statistic, right? So of all the businesses that are started, less than half of them make it past the first year. What's even more startling is that of the remaining businesses, less than half of those make it past their 5th year of operation. So basically about 25% of all businesses that are started, 1 in 4, will make it beyond 5 years. What is really fascinating is that there are some common reasons why all businesses fail. And the most common reason that a business fails, cited by more than 82%, is cash flow issues. And they literally run out of cash flow. We call cash flow the lifeblood of the business operation. And businesses that continue to experience significant cash flow problems, typically those can be fatal. So interestingly enough as well, when you look at the micro businesses, and these are typically businesses that are generating $5 million a year in sales or less, the average annual growth rate for businesses in that category is 7.8%. And I'm going to propose to you this morning that the reason why it's only 7.8% is the majority of small businesses utilize organic growth or building growth on their own into their business as their only way to grow. And hopefully I'll share some things that might broaden your horizons and allow you to think a little differently about that as well. One final fact. Business owners, we're all the most rich people in our communities, right? Everybody looks at us as business owners and says, you guys are the wealthy people in the world, right? You're the 1%ers. But, point of fact, the median business owner income is only $59,000 a year, which is kind of astounding. And frankly, less than 10% of all small business owners in the nation as a whole, and these are US Small Business Administration statistics, less than 10% make 100,000 or more a year. So maybe not quite as wealthy as the community gives us credit for in that regard. The bottom line is growth is typically pretty hard for a business, and cash flow is an issue for 4 out of 5 businesses. Even the ones that don't fail, cash flow is still a real issue. So we all know nothing happens until somebody sells something, right? Until we've got revenue coming in the door, we can't take care of any real issues in our business. I also want to just take a moment and review for you that really, when you sit down and analyze it, there are only 3 paths of growth for your company. Those 3 paths of growth all come from the fact that if you look at the revenues of your business, the revenues are generated by the price that you charge for your products or services multiplied by the amount of customers that you have, right? That equals the income in your business. So when you break that down a little bit, you can see that the only way really to grow is, first, you have the option to increase prices. And boy, what has Amazon done to us all in terms of increasing prices, right? It seems like every time somebody increases a price, Amazon lowers the price and forces the market as a whole back down in that regard. But increasing price is one of the levers that we can pull as business owners to raise sales in our company. The second way we can raise sales in our company is to sell more to the same customers. Figure out how we get those customers either to buy more product from us or buy more frequently from us. Increase either the frequency or the amount of product that they buy. And a lot of people are doing that these days by doing bundling and cross-selling. And we're also seeing a lot of additional marketing avenues that reach out to us now to try and get us to increase the frequency of engagement with the people that we buy from. And then, of course, we all know that adding customers, right? Typically, when you ask folks how do they grow, they will tell you that our main objective is to add additional customers to our mix. So hopefully we can all agree that these are the 3 primary paths of growth for any particular business. And I would say that this is irrespective of business type. So every business has these 3 avenues available to them. So when you think about growing organically, how do you do that? Well, the first thing you might do is raise prices, right? Increase the price. But we all know that raising price will scare some folks away or may force them to buy less frequently from us. There is what's called the attrition rate. Anybody that has been through business school, this is one of the fundamentals that they teach you, but frankly, you don't need to go to business school to learn this. You just need to do this in your business. Try raising your price and see how quickly some of your customers vote with their feet and go next door to your competitor. So you always have to think about, when you're raising price, what is going to be the net contribution that I'm going to get in the business as a result of that. The second avenue of growth would be to expand products or services. And that means you're going to do a little research and development in your company and figure out how do we develop products that are complementary to what we're currently doing? How do we develop services that our customers may need? Or potentially we might go out and find somebody else that's got some interesting products or services that might resonate with our marketplace and license those products or services so that we can bring them into our business and sell them that way. And then, of course, the third way is new customers. And typically companies think about this 2 ways. One is, let's expand the marketing budget. Let's do more on social media. Let's put some advertising out there. Let's get a billboard. Let's, put a TV ad out there. Let's use radio. Let's join associations. Let's get involved with BNI. Let's get involved with E4E. Let's get involved everywhere we can and begin to network our way to growth. Or let's go hire a salesperson and get somebody else to go out and knock on doors and begin to bring additional folks to us. So I hope everybody would agree that these are kind of the common ways that a lot of folks think about growing their business. And for each of us, as we look at our own businesses every year, I think we are probably all thinking about how are we going to do a little bit more next year, right? And which of these levers are we going to pull in order to accomplish that? But the bottom line is all of these things cost money. And if you remember, most business owners, 4 out of 5 business owners, struggle with cash flow issues on a day-to-day basis, to the point that it kills many, many businesses, right? So always having enough money to put enough resources towards growing this way can be a challenge. So let me contrast that for a moment with a methodology whereby you employ strategic growth by buying the growth. And one of the things that folks that employ this method do is they focus on the key benefits, which are really the motivations. Why would they do something like this? And typically, one of the first and primary motivations is to extend their product or service, right? To find additional products or services that they could bring into their company. And instead of licensing them, many people say, if I could own those, then I might have the opportunity to expand that reach. Another key thing along that line is to add particular key skills through the people that are out there. The most pressing problem I think that business owners by and large have had, not only based on studies, but just on feedback that I've had working with business owners for the last 15 years, is getting really talented people and getting folks that can hit the ground running when we bring them in. So a key reason to basically explore strategic growth is, very often it comes with, if you buy another company, it comes with people in there that are already doing those jobs, already fulfilling those responsibilities in the organization. And you might get some key talent into your organization that way. Another key thing is key processes. Processes take time, money, and effort to develop in our companies. And very often, we see folks that will be very attractive to acquiring a competitor because the competitor has got some things that are, much smoother in terms of their operational prowess than what they may have. And that can be a key motivating factor as well. And always, always one of the things is adding key customers, right? So again, very easy to grow by buying a company that's got a lot of customers that you currently don't serve. And then geographic growth is another primary motivation. So another way to grow is if you're doing business in St. Louis, but you'd like to do business in middle of Missouri, in the Columbia area, much easier to go over there and buy a small company and start operating in that market rather than doing a full startup. And then, of course, you get the benefit of eliminating some competition out there as well, which might give you a little less worry when it comes to raise prices and think about the potential attrition. So, there are a lot of things that can also apply towards the economies of scale, particularly if you're in a business that's highly commoditized, where you're providing, for example, raw materials of some form. And in a lot of those type of businesses, when you've got purchasing power, you can dramatically improve the profitability of your company. So lots of motivations out there. And the bottom line is, when folks look at strategic growth, they know that there's a basic rule of thumb for doing so. And that's, generally speaking, the rule of thumb is a multiple of free cash flow that a business generates. So I'm going to take a couple of minutes and show you exactly how that works. But business owners that pursue this really understand that they are adding cash flow, they are adding profit, and they are adding net worth to their business. And the real beauty of this is they get to measure all of that up front before they pull the trigger, so they know exactly the impact that it's going to have on their business. So let's look at a couple of examples. So first off, from a financial impacts perspective, if you're growing organically, right, again, from a price perspective, you're going to need to figure out what the net contribution is. When you're growing strategically, you don't really have to worry about that. And most companies don't make big adjustments to prices. They just take the price list and the book of business that comes with them when they take that. When you're growing organically and you're having to add products or services, it takes time and effort to develop those things, right? When you're growing strategically, it doesn't take much time and effort. Your time and effort is investigating those just to make sure they'll be a good fit, but you know what the impact is going to be because that's pretty transparent up front. And the same thing applies on a customer basis. Particularly if you're trying to grow organically. And I can tell you from my personal experience, we've spent, it seems like every marketing initiative that every company comes to us with shows us how we can grow significantly, better and faster. And it seems like the price of entry is always $5,000. Well, we have this standing joke at IBA that, we've spent out more $5,000 checks than we would like to admit to. And we have not received a lot of positive return on investment from a lot of those expenses. But God knows we haven't been afraid to experiment. And the bottom line is that when you think about all these things from an organic perspective, they are all experimental. That's really what you're doing. You're taking your time and your resources and you're experimenting. You're trying to find the magic connection. But when you think about the difference from a strategic standpoint, you're really not experimenting. You're measuring and determining what is the proven impact going to be when I make this acquisition. So let's look at how that works from an acquisition perspective. So assume for a minute that your company is $1 million company. You're generating $1 million a year in revenue, and your net profit, including your owner's compensation, is somewhere in the neighborhood of $200,000. Well, a simple rule of thumb, if you use a 2.5 multiple, would say that your business is probably worth somewhere around $500,000. Okay. Now let's assume that you want to buy a competitor that's comparably sized, and they're doing $1 million as well. And upon investigation, you learn that, funny enough, their net profits and owner compensation are very, very similar to yours. And they're also generating $200,000 a year in net profit. And you would say, okay, well, if I'm worth $500,000, they're probably worth $500,000 as well. And you talk with that owner and you make a deal and you agree to buy them at $500,000. Well, in today's marketplace, and this is one of the silver linings of the pandemic, you can utilize small business administration lending, and you can buy a competitor for 10% down and finance 90% of the purchase price over a fixed period of time. And my example here would be that we're going to finance $450,000 over a 10-year period of time. It's going to cost your company about $60,000 a year in principal and interest payments to finance that, right? Well, the net effect is you're going to end up with a company that's got $2 million in revenue and about $340,000 in net profits. But it took you, by growing your net profits, it took you to the next tranche in terms of valuation. So now all of a sudden your company is not worth $500,000 anymore, and it's not worth $1 million, the combination of the two. You've taken another step up. Now your company's worth basically $1.2 million, right? So it's a pretty effective way to grow. And if you think about this, you just spent $50,000 in cash, but you generated another $140,000 in incremental profits to the bottom line of your business. So all in all, a 20% growth in the value of your organization as a whole, and then a pretty strong cash on cash return for your hard money investment up front was a pretty good return on investment. All that looks really rosy and really nice. And I'm going to tell you that the practical reality is a little bit different. So let's look at some of the pros and cons. So from an organic growth perspective, the pros are, when you are growing this way as an owner, you have complete control of the growth engine of your business then. And you can choose to do things one at a time. So you can really moderate the growth in your business to make sure that you don't overwhelm your staff or lose your customer service orientation or have any other effects that are detrimental on your business. Some of the con side of the equation, though, is that, time is slow. It does take time for things to incur to your benefit. And generally speaking, you're going to have to invest money first and get the benefit at some unknown point down the road. As in my corporate history as a sales manager, we used to think that a professional salesperson, cost us with salary, potential bonus, benefits, somewhere on the order of $200,000 a year, right? And we knew that it was going to take every new hire somewhere along the lines of 3 to 5 years to get to a return on investment on that, because they're not going to sell that level of profitability their first year out there. It was going to take us a significant amount of time. And the same thing's true for every small business in America. There is just rarely that one hit wonder, if you will, that's going to take you over it. So you have to always look at it and say the pace is going to be uncertain, and there is a strong chance that some of the things you try will fail. I can't tell you. I think we measured 2 years ago that we had spent somewhere on the order of $50,000 on these marketing initiatives, and couldn't put our fingers on a lot of the growth that were tied to each of those different initiatives. So there is certainly a risk of failure in there. But from a strategic acquisition standpoint, it also comes with some pros and cons. The first thing is, from a pro standpoint, it is immediate and quantifiable. You can know on day one exactly what your return on investment is going to be, what the value growth of the overall entity is going to be, and the cash contribution that you expect the acquisition to have to your business as a whole. However, the cons are pretty significant, and they're really threefold. The most important thing is culture. We always say culture eats strategy for lunch, right? And the bottom line is, if you don't do your due diligence well and you don't fully understand the culture, you might bring some folks into your organization that undermine what you already have, and it actually might take you back a step. And in fact, the Harvard Business School says that many, particularly for larger entities, many acquisitions don't turn out as well as the CEO thought they would. And it's specifically for this reason. The cultural costs are just underappreciated. How long is it going to take everybody to come together and play nice in the sandbox? And that's about the people. So you're always in a position where you're typically going to have two people that are doing similar jobs in two different organizations. They've been competitors for a long period of time, hopefully friendly competitors, didn't try to kill each other. But when you bring them together, you've got that merging of people as well. And then finally, the merging of the processes. And that can be a very, very difficult process to overcome. So in general, two different paths to growth. Hopefully that this will be some food for thought to the community. This is a year to get out there and feast and really grow and figure out how to thrive. I can tell you, being involved in the mergers and acquisition marketplace, it's an incredibly active marketplace this year. And I would invite all of you to explore it. It can be very, very productive.